Hi, I'm Mary Thomas, owner of Innovative Therapy, creator of the Body Power System, and we're here to talk more about the lymphatic system. So in the Lymphatic 1 video, I go over how to open up and create flow through the deep lymphatic system in your body cavity, because all of the superficial lymphatics has to go into the deep lymphatic system before your body can process that fluid and get rid of it. We talked about some of the reasons why it was important to work on your lymphatic system and how you can be benefited by doing that. So in this video, I want to talk about some specifics and also talk about how do we work on some of the superficial lymphatics and some of our joints, like our knees, our ankles, our shoulders, our elbows, and even our hands. Because if we just open up the coliseum, meaning our body cavity in here, we're able to really process some of this big molecules and trash that's in the body. But sometimes we need to get really specific with how we get some of these molecules moving. And I'm going to go into some of that as well during this video. So I'm really glad that you've joined us. Let's get started with a little review of how to open up the body cavity. So if you remember, you always start here at the neck, and we're going to just do some little bitty pressures above the collarbone. So I'm doing those little stretches inside my body. I'm avoiding turning my skin red. If I'm turning it red, I'm pushing too hard, unless you're a redhead. You can barely touch some redheads without turning their skin red. I get it. So you're going to do a very gentle, light pressure inside the body cavity. Then when you feel like that's starting to flow, you're going to go into your neck. You're using the backs of your fingers and staying outside the triangle of your neck, bringing that fluid down into those collarbones. So now we're going to come down. We're above the belly button, below the rib cage. We're going to do some rolls. And again, this is a review.
And if I remember right, you make a line through your knuckles that should line up with your belly button.
Exactly. The line of your knuckles lines up through your belly button. So as a review, I'm not going into nearly as much detail, nor am I doing as many strokes. Then I'm going to go down. I've got to scoop my bottom out. Then I'm going to go down to this line at the top of my thigh, bottom of my body, and I'm going to roll that up. And I want to make sure that I do this on both sides. And again, I'm using a broad, flat hand. And I'm only using the amount of pressure that feels like, yeah, that feels good. That feels like the right amount of pressure. So you can experiment gently with that, building into the pressure, but don't start right away with super heavy pressure and digging on your body. Because as I've spoken about in other videos, we want to respect our body and we want to hear what it has to say as we do that work, right? So then the last spot we're going to do on the body is we're going to come up the body wall into the armpit. And then we're going to come down the arm into the armpit. And as we do this, what we're doing is we're opening up our body's ability to process the fluid that we're going to do as we start into some more detailed work and some specific work that we're going to learn to do on the legs, the arms, and then talk a little bit about possibly some areas that might be stuck or common areas that get stuck in the body, and how do we open those up and resolve those issues. So since we're going to go into the leg now, because that was our review, that was pretty fast. So if you need to spend some more time on your body doing those movements, please feel free to put it on pause and then come back after you've got this whole body cavity opened up, all right? So when I do the leg, I usually like a little bit of slack in the tissues. So when I say slack, I don't want my knee fully extended. I don't want it fully bent. So if I have an ottoman or a box or something that I can put my foot on, it helps to give me some slack, because when my tissue is on slack, meaning my muscles and my skin, I can stretch it with greater ease, and it makes it a lot more comfortable.
So would you like more slack on your knee?
Actually, I would like her to scoot forward a little bit.
Forward a little bit. Yeah. And
There you go.
Move the box back.
Yeah, let's move the box back a little bit.
Since I got the short leg.
So you got a little bit.
Yeah, I got a long legs.
But it's just a really good illustration that different body shapes and sizes, you need to adjust and come up with a body position that works for you.
For your body.
Exactly. And supporting your body, because we all have different body shapes and sizes. So I'm gonna lean back and put my hip out a little, because I want this to be open and have a way for the fluid to come in. If I have it at a 90-degree angle, think about turning your car in a 90-degree angle. It has to slow way down, and you have to just take that angle, and it just takes longer to do a right turn, a 90-degree turn, than if you're taking a much wider angle turn, or going on, you know, a clover turn. Why? Because you don't want to flip your car, or you don't want to, you know, throw your passengers from one side to the other. Well, if I have a 90-degree angle here at my hip, and I'm trying to push the fluids up out of my leg, they're going to have a bigger struggle getting through that 90-degree turn than if I say, okay, well, we'll give you, you know, maybe a 45 or 60-degree turn as opposed to a 90-degree turn. So it enables that fluid to get through here faster as I start to go into the leg. However, if I put the leg all the way straight, then the tissues are in tension. There's stretch there a little bit. And so if there's too much stretch, I again have a hard time getting that fluid up through those vessels. So if I have it on a little bit of a slack, but I'm not, you know, all crunched up, the fluids are going to move better, because water takes the path of least resistance. So when we can create an open riverbed for it to flow through, and these actually are vessels, so, but if we can keep them relatively open, they're going to flow better. So then on my thigh, I'm going to do what I call grand hands. And when I say grand, I mean big. So I'm going to stretch the skin on top of the muscle going towards this area that I've already opened up, right? So I'm just gently stretching that. And again, as I get close to my knee, I kind of have to lean forward, so I've changed my angle, but I'm going to work that fluid through. Now, if you feel a band of tightness coming down the inside of your thigh, what do?
You go to your other leg.
That's a good idea. You can go to your other leg. What else can we do?
Or not so much pressure on it.
Lighten the pressure.
Okay.
I must be a good teacher, or these guys are really smart students.
Yes.
Smart.
Because they're getting it. But see, when your brain has to think through an answer to a question, then you're starting to really incorporate that data. So, and because I'm asking you to change those normal reactions, which is stop or use force, we have to have the brain really engaging in those changes, because it's a significant change over what we have been accustomed to and what our standard reactions are. So rather than react, now we have to replace that with how do I proact? How do I really want to act so that I can help the healing, rather than throw my hands up and say there's no hope? Because there is hope. You can change the way you feel and function. So when I'm doing those gentle stretches and I feel like I do have a little tight band in here, and so when I feel that, I'm going to feel up my leg to where the tight band kind of gets softer and isn't as tight. And it's less painful, by the way, which is my favorite, because I like to work where it's less painful. So now I'm going to do little stretches right above that band. I'm stretching it up towards this line, my inguinal line, at the top of my thigh, and I'm going to do little stretches. I was working with a client the other day, and I had done this technique with him, and I was like, man, no, I would have gotten in there and just beat it up. I said, yeah, and then he would have been in pain. And he went to his doctor a day or two after we had done that session, and he told the doctor how I had released it. And his physician was like, oh no, I would have gotten in there and beat it up. And I thought that's what we tend to do. We either beat it up and use that force, rather than finding that place where it's like, if I'm up here, I can work on that area above the tightness, above the restriction.
Yeah.
And then I can notice how that restriction got softer.
So this is the lymphatic channels that are in our body. Yes?
Well, you're getting into some more complex anatomy. So as I stretch above, the band is not just lymphatics.
Okay.
That is typically a muscle and or fascia.
Okay.
So, but anytime you have a tight muscle and or fascia, you have got an accumulation of fluid in that area, because there's usually an inflammatory response going on. And so when we can come above that and open up that flow and start to pull that swelling out, we actually open up the capillary beds in that region, which allows healing. That's where healing comes from, is I can bring the blood down, and the blood brings all the trucks full of the building blocks that need to come down into that area in order to restore and recover those tissues that are kind of crying for help.
So you still recommend the 10 to 15?
10 to 15 strokes, unless you're like, because again, I usually do it by feel, and I'm going to tell you, sometimes I probably have done 30 strokes, and there's other times where I've probably done 3, because what I'm feeling is, how are my tissues responding? So in the beginning, notice what my tissues feel like. Because you might say, I don't know, they feel like skin. I don't know, they feel hard. I don't know, they feel painful. Okay, but that's something.
Right, and it's always when you say that, that's how I feel when I first start. But as I do this, I recognize, oh, now I understand my body a little bit differently.
And you may or may not get it quite as fast as Susan is picking this up. But it's not a competition. It's not a race. And we look at things in society, well, I didn't get as fast as Susan did, so I'm done. Some people take a longer period of time, but if you're feeling anything, hardness, stiffness, temperature, changes in any of that, you are on the right track. And celebrate being on a right track, because there are a lot of wrong tracks. So when you celebrate being on the right track and saying, I don't know if I, can do exactly what she's saying, but I did something. Something is better than nothing.
Exactly.
And something in the right direction is great.
Right.
Because when you're in the right direction, you can keep adding to it, and pretty soon it's this massively great thing where I'm going, oh my gosh, look at that. My thigh feels all smooth now. I'm not feeling that band down my thigh. So when I do some of the movements with Body Power System, I might go, oh my gosh, I'm getting better results, because I've supported my body in making changes. Because it really does take a village to heal a person. And so, and you can do this on your significant other, and you can trade. They can work on you, you can work on them. Maybe I should do a whole video on that. Bring a table.
I just want to be worked on.
So now I've got my thigh, I'm going to come up the back. So most of my lymph, by the way, is going to travel up the inside of my body. So it travels up here. But I have lymph everywhere, right? Because I got blood everywhere.
Right.
So I can do these kind of circular stretches where I'm just bringing that around. And again, I am using less pressure on my thigh than I did on my abdomen.
I want you to clarify that. You said I've got lymph everywhere because I've got blood everywhere. But when I think of lymph, I think lymph nodes, and I think that I've been taught they're concentrated in little pools in different places in my body, and I don't think that's what you're saying at all.
Yes and no, because I haven't talked really about lymph nodes, because we're not really working on lymph nodes.
Okay.
We do have lymphatic vessels. They're like blood vessels, except for they're translucent. In other words, if you hold a lymphatic vessel up, you can see through it. So the lymphatic vessels start off in just like with capillaries, and then they go to arterial or capillaries, and then venules, and then they move up in size. Lymphatic vessels do the same thing. They move up in size. And so the vessels go into lymphatic nodes, and lymph nodes are like little filters. So they can filter out some of the impurities and drop some of it into the blood at that point. But some of that fluid is going to go through the node and travel all the way up to here into our blood supply. And I'm really kind of simplifying this, but you'll get the idea, because depending on which author you read, there's somewhere between 400 and 900 lymph nodes in the body. Why does it vary so much? Because they're not anatomically hugely similar. Like if you look at a heart, it's a heart, it's a heart. Now there are differences, but in the lymphatic system, there are fairly significant differences. And so the lymph nodes, like you can have anywhere from 15 to 35 lymph nodes in your armpit.
Oh, wow. Our bodies are amazing.
Our bodies are amazing, and they're not as identical as we think they are.
Wow, wow.
We think, oh, a body is a body is a body. A hand is a hand is a hand. No, it's not true.
No,
there
it's
are
not.
incredible differences in our shapes, our sizes, our anatomical and genetic makeups, and how our bodies respond to things. And that's why it becomes so important to be able to begin this process of learning to listen to my body and respond to its needs, rather than saying, this is the way it has to be all the time, because it isn't. When we start to understand our bodies, it's like if you have several children. Every one of those several children has a very different personality.
Yes.
And needs to be treated as an individual. My mom had 5 kids. I'm one of them, obviously. So, I mean, I could just watch one of my siblings go through a reprimand, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to ever do that, because I watched them go through whatever it was they went through. So, you know, I have a brother who had to experience it all for himself. He could watch one of the other siblings go through something. Oh no, he had to have that experience for himself. So we're all so different, and when we respect that and embrace it as an opportunity for us to learn both about ourselves and other people, but it's similar in the lymphatic system that they are different, and as you start to tune into them, you start to go, oh my gosh, if I learn about my lymphatic system, but then I go to work on my spouse's, then it might be different than mine. And differences are good. They're not a bad thing. So if I want to go behind my knee, and knees are super important, so I'm going to spend some time here on the knee. So here's my kneecap. Right above my knee in this area, it's almost all connective tissue, meaning it's not muscle, it's not contractile tissue, and so it's a place where fluid can accumulate. So I line the patty parts of my fingers up, and I want to stretch above that knee. Because I want to make sure that that fluid is coming out of that knee area, especially if I have anterior knee pain. This is a really great way to get rid of that anterior knee pain. And like right here, I have a little, I don't know, a little puffy waddy thing. Pretty medical.
Do ya? You got a puffy waddy thing over there.
That's layman terms.
Okay, the medical term is thixotrypsy if you want to know, but it's an accumulation of fluid and protein that gets thick. Now what that looks like in the kitchen is if you've ever cooked a ham or a turkey and then you set it on the counter and let it get cold and it gets all that gelatin stuff around it, that's thixotrypsy, and it actually happens in our body, and we don't have to be cooked before it to happen. So you can get these little wads like that of this protein and fluid kind of development that forms a gelatinous substance that inside the body we call thixotrypsy. So when we have that, it's a good place to find the edges of it and kind of work on the edges and pull them up and stretch them. All right. So now behind the knee. So behind the knee, I put my hands like this. So my little fingers are together.
Okay.
And I'm scooping gently with my fingers behind the knee. So I'm scooping up. And there's two tendons on each side of the knee, and then in the middle there's kind of a hollow. And when I say hollow, I mean it doesn't have as much stuff in it. Because it's not really hollow. Because there is no hollow or empty spaces in the body. But when I do those little stretches through that area of depression, I can actually feel my foot change. The fluid in my foot is changing. Now, if you can't feel it your first 15 times through this, it's okay. I promise it's happening. If, don't use too much pressure, but just give that knee a really, make sure that you get all of those little areas behind that knee worked through.
Weren't you and I just talking about the bottoms of our feet?
Yes.
That's funny.
Can you feel it on the bottom of your foot?
I can.
Good.
My toes, so I can feel it through the tops of my feet. Oh, yes, I can.
You spoke too soon. So I'm gonna work down the leg, and again, I'm just using a little pressure to stretch the skin upwards towards my groin, towards my heart. It's all coming upwards. So when I go down, there's zero pressure. I'm touching my pants, but I am not doing any push down. It is zero pressure going down.
Mary, is this good therapy for your immune system?
Yes, the lymphatic system is integral to the immune system because it carries, so a lymphocyte is a white blood cell in your lymph system. A white blood cell is a lymphocyte in your blood system.
Okay.
But they're the same cells, and they are your first defense in getting rid of any, invading bacteria, viruses.
They're the response mechanism anytime you cut yourself or you have any type of an invasion.
An exposure to some type of an invader. So when your lymph system is moving well and keeping things healthy, and you are stimulating it, you're helping to boost your immune system.
So is there a time of day that it's best to do this type of work? And I would call this body work.
I call it manual therapy or lymphatic drainage techniques. So, I could make a case for doing it just about any time of day.
Okay.
The benefits might be different at different times of day. However, any of those benefits and all of those benefits could be really positive for us. So the times I would recommend not doing it is after a big, heavy, fatty meal.
Oh, good advice.
Yes.
Avoid big, heavy, fatty meals.
Okay.
If you're dehydrated. So you want to do this when you're well hydrated. That may be, later in the day. depends on maybe what your job is. If you're, perspiring a lot because you work outside, you might not want to do it right when you get home from work. You might do it, after you've consumed enough liquid so that you're real well hydrated. So those are the times that I would say, I'm not sure I would do it after a super heavy workout, but it would be fine probably after a light workout. Exercise, I usually have people exercise after I do lymphatic work on them, because when we've opened up the lymphatic system and then we exercise, we're actually moving more toxins because we've opened the lymphatic system, and the exercise helps to push more of these toxins out of our bodies. And so I like to do the lymphatics before I have people do a lot of exercise. However, sometimes you're like, scheduling conveniences and things. So I don't get too attached to that.
Okay.
I do really prefer people haven't eaten, like hamburger and French fries and then do this. It's too much fat.
What happens?
Fat binds your lymphatics in your intestines because fat can't be picked up by the blood. It's too big of a molecule. Fat has to be picked up by the lymphatics. And so if you eat a high-fat meal, then your lymphatics is all tied up in your abdominal area, moving that. And if you're trying to make it work faster or make it work differently, you can kind of cause a traffic jam because the vessels are like, wait a minute, I haven't loaded up yet. I need to pack up, I need to get these big molecules inside, and you're like trying to rush it. And so you could cause maybe some mild nauseousness, maybe some, upset stomach type issues. I would think diarrhea could even be a possibility.
Is there any connection between what you're talking about, how fat moves through our body, and things like cellulite?
No, not really. Cellulite is a completely different thing. People think that it's mostly related to fat, but it's actually filaments that hold our skin, the under part of our skin, to our muscles. Mm-hmm. And when you have a lot of those filaments and then you lay down fat under that area, the filaments are still holding the skin down to the tissue underneath, and so it causes that puckery appearance. And so they've actually created different devices to help lift up the skin, and it breaks those filaments.
Yes, it sounds interesting to me that you're talking about the lymphatic system being something that's right under the skin, and so anyway, I was starting to make that conclusion. So, thank you for
the lymphatic system is a very fragile system. The vessels are fairly fragile, so that's one of the reasons why you want to use light pressure on when you're doing the lymphatic work. Mm-hmm. So be sure you're going down your other leg. So we're stretching that up using our grand hands. And so it can and does regenerate or regrow when it's cut, but it regrows at about 80%. So the number of vessels regrows at 80%, and the size of the vessel grows at 80%. So if you get say a liposuction and you liposuction, the lymphatic vessels are going to be removed. And so when they grow back, they're growing back at 80%, not 100%. So it actually puts you at risk for more swelling in an area. So it becomes healthier to use other means of supporting your body as opposed to going in there and just sucking out your lymphatic system with... It's actually very traumatizing for your lymphatic system to do things like liposuction.
Yeah, I'm noticing sensations in my torso, and so I can see that there's some things going on here, Mary. You're not.
So another thing you can do when you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I've been working on my leg and I'm feeling all this stuff here, stop for a minute and do some of these deep breaths. Really low into your abdomen. In doing deep breathing, I'm helping to push that fluid up and get it out of the abdomen so that then my body can, and you want to put your hands here because watch my hands. So you want to move your hands as you breathe and keep your shoulders as relaxed as possible.
Okay.
When I lock my shoulders and breathe up here, I'm actually not moving my lymph out of my legs. I'm locking it in with my diaphragm. But when I can relax my shoulders and move my diaphragm and move this area of my body, I'm supporting and facilitating lymph. And that can take a lot of practice to learn to breathe into my with my diaphragm. Because in our high-speed, high-pace, high-stress society, we go, I'm gonna get it all done. Rather than, you know what? I can only get this much done. That's how much I can get done in a day, so that's what I'm gonna focus on. So when I bring it down, I'm able to say, wait a minute, I'm gonna slow it down, and I gotta focus on what I can do rather than what I think I have to do. And it makes a big difference both in the outcomes of what we do as well as how well we are. So I'm scooping behind my knee. Now, I'm gonna pretend that I have a band here in my leg, and below that band I'm feeling some swelling. Because again, we did the band here on the thigh, but if I work into my leg and I go, wait a minute, there's a band in my leg, I'm gonna come again above the leg, or above the band on my leg, and do some stretches up.
Oh, so
And
when
as
there's
I-
that tight shin pain from overworking, running, those types of things, this is helpful for that?
So yes, but the shin pain can be really painful. So what I recommend is to work off of the shin, and again, just stretch that up right next to the shin bone. Why is it so painful? Because the pain that you're having when you get that anterior shin leg pain from running is because the membrane around your bone, which has lots and lots of sensory nerves and lots of lymphatic vessels, has gotten overwhelmed, and the lymph has caused swelling in that, and the trauma, the stress of the running has caused inflammation along that bone. So when you start to touch it, it's like painful. It lights up like a 4th of July fireworks show. I mean, it's like, whoa! So really, really light pressure, really, really short stretches. Notice how short my stretches are here. If I've got shin pain, really, really gentle stretches.
Mary, I'm so glad you're getting this on video.
Yes.
So I can work all the way up and down that shin bone and help open that up.
That way you forget something, you can always go back and look.
And I intend to also.
That's right.
I can benefit from all your years of experience. Mary, how many years have you been doing this?
So I've been a certified lymphatic therapist for about 21 years now.
Wow.
Wow.
And I have thousands of hours of experience. So again, in a video, I can't teach you everything, but I can certainly teach you some things that can really help your wholeness and your health overall. And it takes those small and simple steps in order to expand that. So as I rinse, I'm gonna come back up. So I'm just facilitating all that fluid that I've gotten open and loose through those vessels. I'm gonna bring it back up. I'm gonna do my roll through my pelvic area. Then I'm gonna do a roll through my abdominal area. And then I'm gonna finish as I come up here to my collarbone area and gently do some more stretches. So So I'm going to end with some really nice deep breaths to help support my body. And then I'm going to drink a whole bottle of water. When I say a whole bottle of water, I mean at least 500 milliliters or 16 ounces. Because as I consume that, it's going to help keep all of those toxins flowing so my body can pick them up and move them out to the great sewers of America. Because it doesn't belong here, it's not paying rent.
That's right, and we want it to go.
If it's not paying rent, it doesn't belong here.
That's right.
That's funny.
So to be able to get rid of those things so that as you do the body power system, you can resolve some of the soreness much more rapidly. You can address areas that are stuck and you're like, it doesn't work, I can't get it to change. Well, it's probably because you've got a bottleneck in your lymphatic system and you've got things backing up. And so when you can support your system with ease and with gentleness and with respect and listening to it, you're going to maximize your results with the body power system, and you're going to help a lot of other aspects of your body heal as you remove toxins, as you remove bottlenecks and blocks in your system from healing, and as you prepare your cells to open up and receive a healthy blood supply and healthy exchange of fluid. So when I remove inflammation from around a blood vessel, my blood vessel is supposed to look like this, and then I get a lot of swelling and it collapses it. So imagine how much less I can get through that little bitty hole than I can when I'm full open. So if I remove the fluid from my body and I open this up, I'm able to then move in big molecules and things that help me heal. So I want to remove that inflammation. I want to open it up. I want to allow things to heal. I want to remove toxins. And that will enable me to get further faster.
I have one more question based on that, Mary, before you go.
Okay.
Is there any health concern for someone who may have plaque in their arteries or who is on medication for their blood pressure or blood thinners to do this type of work?
Okay, so let's address the cardiac issue first. If they have hardening of the arteries or plaque development, there is not a concern because we're not working deeply enough to really get onto the blood vessels and really like break that loose.
Okay.
You should not be using that much pressure. That's why I say broad, flat hands, gentle pressure, no pain, or just, you don't want to create pain. So if someone is on blood thinners, I have done this with many people on blood thinners.
Wonderful.
Including me at different times. And so you may cause bruising, but it's not the same kind of bruising that you see if somebody like slugs you. It's a bruising that looks, I call it wispy, cloudy bruising. Okay. And what happens is, and some people with very fragile tissue, because people's tissue feels very, very different one from another. So if I'm working with somebody who has very fragile tissue, I use even lighter pressure. If I'm working with somebody who's on a blood thinner, I, again, stay very light, very broad-handed. And as I stretch the tissue, I am very highly aware of how much I'm stretching it, because you can stretch a capillary, and if they're on a blood thinner, that capillary can actually start leaking even though you haven't damaged it, you haven't torn it, but you can stretch it enough, or you reduce the swelling, the vessel pops open, and now the vessel, which had been collapsed like this for a long period of time, pops open, but the walls aren't quite strong enough to contain the fluid that can now enter that opening. And so you can get this leaking, which looks more, again, like a cloudy, wispy bruise, rather than like somebody slugged me and I got this dark purple type bruise. And so then you just know, well, usually what happens after a number of sessions is the blood vessel walls get healthier, they get stronger, and they don't leak as much. and then you don't have that issue with the bruising.
Wonderful.
So you just have to be cautious if you're doing this with somebody on blood thinners, so that you're not overstretching the tissues or taking them faster than they can go, because they will require a little bit more time to develop some thickness and some strength to their blood vessel walls if you're removing swelling on somebody with blood thinners.
Thank you so much.
So one other thing is, you don't want to do this on somebody on dialysis. If they don't have good kidney function and good bladder function, this is probably not something that you want to be doing. At least, you don't want to do this on somebody without good kidney function.
Yes, and you can always consult your doctor.
Yeah, so be sure to, if you have any doubts, talk to your doctor about this, about doing the lymphatic work on yourself. Again, I have 250 hours of in-class training and 20 plus years of experience doing this. So there are a lot of things that I do for and with people lymphatically that I will not teach, because you have to be able to know your anatomy really, really well, and you have to be able to feel what you are doing and know what tissue you're actually working on. So there is a lot you can help heal and support in healing through lymphatic techniques, but it takes time and training in order to develop those skills.